Let's transition and let's go to the NFC West. Let's talk about the NFC West and my expectations for the NFC West this upcoming NFL season. So last year, the 49ers, they won the NFC West with a 13-4 record. The Seahawks, they did make the playoffs. They were 9-8. The Rams were 5-12, fresh off a Super Bowl win. And the Cardinals were 4-13. And this season, the NFC West plays the AFC North and the NFC East. So when I look at the NFC West, obviously the team to beat in the class of the division is the San Francisco 49ers. But the Seattle Seahawks will be within striking distance. I'm going to talk about them here shortly. But when it comes to the 49ers, obviously they're led by head coach Kyle Shanahan. And they are favored in every game except Week 13 in Philly. So that's the only game that they're not going to be favored in against the Eagles. These are some of their big games this year. They are home in Week 5 against the Cowboys. Week 8, they got a matchup against the Bengals in the Bay. They are home on Christmas against Lamar and his Baltimore Ravens. So those are some of the 49ers' big games this year. So obviously, their quarterback is Brock Purdy. And last year, during his 7-game winning streak, after he took over for Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy, he averaged 235 passing yards per game, completing 67% of his passes, 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. His passer rating was 116, and his average yards per pass was 9.0. He led the NFL in his yards per pass and his passer rating. But even though Brock Purdy had a great, and I do mean great, 7 or 8 game stretch for the 49ers, I still got my questions about Brock Purdy and whether or not he can be a franchise quarterback for the 49ers moving forward. I said it on last week's show, and I'm going to say it again. I believe that the 49ers made a mistake trading Trey Lance to the Dallas Cowboys. I believe they gave up on Trey Lance prematurely, and I believe that we don't have enough evidence to support the idea that Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold are your answers as your quarterbacks moving forward. I don't believe that you have enough evidence to support that. And that's what Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch is trying to sell us on. They're trying to sell us on the idea of Brock Purdy being this franchise quarterback who you can build around. And I'm not so sure that Brock Purdy has proven enough to where you give up on a potential franchise quarterback and Trey Lance, who may be good. We don't have enough evidence, or he doesn't have enough experience for us to know whether or not he can be a franchise quarterback. I feel like they gave up on Trey Lance prematurely. And remember, last year, going into the season, Trey Lance was the 49ers starter. He got injured, and then they brought in Jimmy Garoppolo, and they kind of just fell back on the depth chart to Brock Purdy. Like, this was not Brock Purdy's football team to start the season, and it wasn't his football team in the middle of the season. It didn't become his football team until the middle to the end. So I still got my questions about Brock Purdy and whether or not he can be a franchise quarterback moving forward for the 49ers. He also was coming off of elbow surgery. So will he be 100% as we head into the season? Now, obviously, I think the 49ers have one of the best rosters in the NFL. You look at the roster, they got CMC in the backfield. At receiver, you got Brandon Ayuk, you got Deebo Samuel. At tight end, you got George Kittle. I love their offensive line. Their offensive line, they got Trent Williams at left tackle. You got Aaron Banks, Jake Brendale, right guard Spencer Buford. This offensive line is one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And they create running lanes for Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell to run through. And they also help Purdy because Purdy doesn't have to scramble and be mobile to make plays. He can sit back in the pocket and throw the football down the field because they're protecting him. I love this 49ers offensive line. I really, really do. Now, obviously, defensively, they got one of the best defensive units in the NFL. You got Nick Bosa, who I expect to be back for week 1 next week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. General Manager John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, they better pay Nick Bosa what he deserves. Give that man his money. He is one of the best pass rushers that we have in the NFL. But up front, you got Arik Armstead. At linebacker, you still got Fred Warner. I think Fred Warner is one of the best young linebackers that we have in the NFL. You got Oren Burks in your secondary. You got Tre'Davious Ward. Okay, so this 49ers team, top to bottom, is a top 3 roster in the NFL. And the biggest question for the 49ers is going to be, is Brock Purdy your answer at quarterback? I tell you who's not the answer at quarterback, Sam Darnold. I don't understand for the life of me how you choose Sam Darnold over Trey Lance. Sam Darnold is garbage. He's garbage. I think he has a career record of 61-55. He was pathetic in New York and in Carolina. But they're sold on this idea that Sam Darnold is their franchise, is a great backup behind Brock Purdy. I don't understand how you can say that Sam Darnold deserves a roster spot over Trey Lance. I don't understand that. I think that's a mistake. But the question for the 49ers is going to be, can Brock Purdy elevate his game and prove that he's the franchise quarterback for the 49ers moving forward? They have the answers at every single position on this football team. And at head coach, they got Kyle Shanahan, who's a proven head coach as well. And he's one of the best play callers that we have in the NFL. And the 49ers organization overall is a great organization. It's going to be about Brock Purdy. Now, let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks were the surprise team of 2022. They were the biggest surprise for me, the success that they had last season. Obviously, Geno Smith had a great season. He won NFL Comeback Player of the Year, and he led the NFC in touchdown passes last year. 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 4,282 passing yards, completing 70% of his passes. Geno Smith performed at a high level last year. He really, really did. But he played well at the beginning of the season. This is Geno Smith, weeks 1 through 13. His passer rating was 108.7. Weeks 14 through 18, 83.9. His passing yards per game, weeks 1 through 13, was 264 passing yards per game. Weeks 14 through 18, 222 passing yards per game. His yards per pass attempt, weeks 1 through 13, was 8.1. Weeks 14 through 18, 6.2. Weeks 1 through 13, he had 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Weeks 14 through 18, 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And weeks 1 through 13, he completed 73% of his passes. Weeks 14 through 18, he only completed 64% of his passes. So as the year went along, Geno Smith didn't play great. He played great at the beginning of the season, but he didn't play well towards the end of the season. But I love their skill position players that they have in Seattle. They got DK Metcalf. They got Tyler Lockett. Both receivers had over 1,000 receiving yards last year. I love their second year running back, Kenneth Walker III. He had a tremendous rookie season last year. 228 carries, 1,050 rushing yards, 9 touchdowns. I thought Kenneth Walker helped Geno Smith out a lot last year with his ability to make plays with the football in his hands and run the football and take some pressure off of Geno Smith. Because if you have the running game going with Kenneth Walker, then those safeties have to come down, and you got to put 8-9 in the box, and you get one-on-one coverage with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf on the outside, on the perimeter. So if Kenneth Walker can run the football, that's going to help this Seattle Seahawks football team and Geno Smith thrive as a quarterback. At tight end, you got Noah Fant, but I love their offensive line. It should be better this year. You got Evan Brown, Damian Lewis, okay, Charles Cross, Phil Haynes as well. This is a pretty good offensive line for the Seattle Seahawks. Now, defensively, and we know that's Pete Carroll's calling card, defensively, they got Jordan Brooks. He won't be 100% to start the season, but he still will be effective. They did bring back Bobby Wagner, and Jamal Adams is going to be returning from his injury that he had last year, and he was out for majority of the season. So Jamal Adams is going to help their secondary. Now, in their secondary, they got Davon Witherspoon. They got Condre Diggs at safety. And they also brought in Devin Bush for some depth at linebacker. So I expect the Seattle Seahawks football team to be a good football team, and I like their roster. I really do. I like their roster. They're not as good as the 49ers, but I believe that they are a team that can definitely compete with the 49ers in the NFC West. And they can maybe steal a game from the 49ers, possibly. But the 49ers and the Seahawks are the cream of the crop in the NFC West. I don't got no expectations for the Rams. Last year they didn't play well. They weren't really good last year. Sean McVay, I don't feel like he really coached to his standard last year. Matthew Stafford had 10 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He didn't play, and he only played in like 10 games, I believe, last year. He was injured. Cooper Kupp was dealing with injuries. Obviously, Aaron Donald was injured. But if Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald are healthy, the Rams can win 6 or 7 games. But they're not going to be a playoff team in the NFC. And the Cardinals are tanking for Caleb Williams. Let's just call it what it is. The Cardinals will be the worst team in the NFL this season. I don't have many expectations for the Cardinals. I don't know when Kyler Murray is going to return back to the field and return back to play, but the Cardinals will be the worst team, not only in the NFC West, but in the NFL overall. They are tanking for Caleb Williams. So, in this division, I have, just like it is on the screen, Cardinals finishing 4th, Rams finishing 3rd, the Seattle Seahawks come in 2nd, and the San Francisco 49ers will win the NFC West. And they'll be a playoff team in the NFC. But I think the Seahawks are going to be a playoff team as well as a wild card team in the NFC.